Okay, I'm just getting started. So I'm actually outside. My garden is behind me, and I'm gonna give people a few minutes to join. I actually don't own a laptop, so I only have a desktop, and I don't have any way to check about comments. So if anybody is on, if you can drop a comment so I can see if I have that, that would be awesome. And I'll just give it a couple minutes to get started. I don't see anybody in the live yet, so I'll just wait a minute. I'm gonna tag everyone. Hopefully that's not annoying, but just to see, because I know there's been a lot of technical issues lately with Facebook. So, okay. See if anybody is in here. I'm just gonna give it a minute. I don't see anything coming through, so hopefully it will work. Okay, great. Some comments are coming in. I see some people are here, so thank you so much for joining today. I'm gonna give it a couple more minutes. I am outside, so there might be some road noise or different things like that. So if you experience any technical stuff, let me know now, because once I am going, I won't really be able to change. Okay, great, good to go. Awesome, yay, I'm glad this is working. Cool. So today I'm going to be talking about garden magic, and I do have my garden behind me. So again, I am outside. You'll probably hear some road noise. I live in an urban environment, and then my chickens are behind me as well, and they want to come out, so they are screaming a little bit. So if you hear what sounds like monsters in the background, just know that they are chickens. So this live is, there's some other crones that are maybe wanting to do a series, maybe just kind of, jumping in as needed. But I just want to keep this a little bit high level and talk about different aspects of garden magic and just kind of what I do with my practice. And then if there are any areas that you're like really interested in specifically, let me know and I can share that with the other crones, and that might be really good topics for us to go into deeper dives about. One thing to know about garden magic is that it is really specific to each person's path, right? And it's kind of simple. So it really is, it's just gardening. And a lot of things that like farmers would have used or gardeners and folk magic practitioners would have used would be pretty simple. So there's not a whole lot to it to deep dive on some topics. But yeah, just kind of, I'll go through what some of those are. So the first thing I just kind of have like a generic list of things to talk about today. And I'm going to keep it really to what I practice a lot. And one of the questions I have is, why would you garden? So, and this is really kind of from a magical sense. Of course, you can get food and connect with plants and be outside and all these wonderful benefits. But in terms of your magical practice, being able to connect with nature, I think, is a really important aspect. A lot of our different paths and magical practices do remind us that we are one with nature. And so this allows us to get that hands-on connection to the plants, to the earth, and be able to have that deeper connection. It also lets you really learn about the land that you live on. So we all have different climates, different areas in the world that we live in, and the way that gardening looks in your area is going to be different. And so it lets you really learn about that, what kind of plants grow, and how you can really immerse yourself into the land that you're on. Of course, manifestation and intention are huge with gardening. So what I recommend is really picking your overall garden intention. Mine is love and abundance. So those are the things that I have put in my garden from day one, and that's kind of what I am always working to do is improve love and improve abundance for myself and other people that my garden touches. And then I do set intentions with specific plants as well. So with those plants, you know, I might be growing something specific for dream work. I might be growing something specific for calming or protection. And then I put that intention into that plant as well. So gardening is also a really great way to connect with the elements. Of course, you know, just by the nature of it, you know, the elements are there, and I'll get into that in a minute, but you know, there's a lot to it with the elements. And you get to connect with the wheel of the year and also the cycles of nature. So of course you're outside, you're working with the seasons. You know, a lot of plants only grow at specific times of year, and depending on where you live and what kind of climate you're in, you can maybe only garden in specific times of the year. So it does let you really connect to that. So you can actually really work with your garden pretty much in every aspect of your practice. For me, it is an integral part of honestly all of my practice. And I'll give some examples about that, but you can use your imagination. I mean, literally anything that you do within your craft, you can connect back to your garden. So some examples are like kitchen magic, of course. If you're growing food, fruits, veggies, things like that, of course, you're gonna probably want to eat them and cook with them. So that, of course, can align perfectly to kitchen magic. If you're growing herbs, anything that you would do with, you know, herbs, of course, connects. If you make teas, I mean, there's so many different types of plants you can use with tea, and a lot of people will even make like a tea garden. That's a really popular thing, is picking plants that go well with tea and using it specifically for teas. If you know, want to work with plants for spells, things like jar spells, sachets, like really anything that you want to do, you can work with plants, and flowers are actually really great for that too. Offerings with your deities, protection work, you can call in nature spirits, and just so on and so on. Like you can really just use anything and be able to do that. So going into the element side, so we have our 4 elements, fire, water, air, and earth. So at the most very basic, you know, fire, your plants are growing because of the sun. The sun is a giant ball of fire, right? And of course that heat, that light, the fire is really bringing the plants to life. And that's why a lot of plants grow the best in the summertime and the harvest and things as well. So the fire brings, fire element, also your energy and passion that you bring into your garden also represents the fire elements. And you can even light a candle if you want it in your garden. Of course, you know, be very careful with fire safety, but sometimes I will bring like if I'm doing a meditation or doing something, I'll bring a candle, especially in the wetter months where I live. And water, of course, you have to water your plants. So the most basic, again, just even if you're not even trying, you're going to be working with the elements. But of course, when you water your plants, you can do that. And you can also put in like a water feature, like a fountain, if you want to bring that more into your garden. And one really great way to add intention into the garden work that you do is by visualizing things that you want to flow in as you're watering your plants. So as you're holding your hose or your watering can, you can put that energy straight into the plants, into the dirt. I have not personally done this, but I have definitely heard of this, and some friends I know do it as well. And they'll take like their watering can and they will put herbs into the water and just meditate with it. You can do a whole lot with that container of water and then put that out into the garden as well. So it just really depends on, you know, what it is that you want to do and how much time you want to spend. But there's so many ways to be able to enhance the water with your practice into your garden. So the air itself, of course, you're outside, there's air. The breeze, being able to listen to the sounds of the birds and wind chimes and things like that can really connect with the air. And you can also use incense. So if I am out here in the evening, you know, sometimes there's a little bit of mosquitoes. I'll bring like an incense that kind of helps get the mosquitoes out of my way. And that's another nice way to bring in that element into the garden. And then lastly, earth. We have the dirt, of course, really the lands, the plants themselves, and ways to honor the earth would be, you could get like a Green Man plaque, or do even like a fairy garden, or things like that. So before I go into the next one, I'm going to check the comments. See, lots of comments. I love it. Okay. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying the background, and thank you for being here live. Yes, it's a beautiful day here. I am in Southern California, so we get a lot of those. Very spoiled. And flower, herbs, and trees. Yes, trees are definitely a really cool part of gardening as well. And Serenity is mentioning that she works with Gaia and Aphrodite. Yes, those are amazing goddesses to work with in the garden. I incorporate Aphrodite in my garden a lot too. And Kelly is mentioning that dirt under the nails and against her feet really boosts her energy, and I could not agree more. I love that. It's really grounding, like having that dirt with you, and I'm often like going places and like, oh my gosh, I have dirt all into my nails and trying to clean it out, so I don't even notice at home. Yes, the tea garden. They're very cool. I have a few tea plants, but I don't have a dedicated area. And torches for the garden. Yes, amazing. Yeah, there's tons of ways to connect with the elements. And yeah, moon water, that is a perfect way to water your garden. And the Fae, yes, definitely can connect to the Fae. I do have a fairy village. I have a small one. I have a big one on my patio, my front patio, and then I have a small one that's kind of been neglected out here. I need to get it going. Yes, LA County. So we have a lot in common, Erica, with the plants and things that we can grow. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little bit about getting started, and I actually have a little quiz that we're gonna do together. There's no right or wrong answers. But one of the best ways to get started is finding out what your climate and your zone are. So if you're in the United States, we do have the USDA garden zone, so you can put in your zip code and it will tell you what that is, and then you can learn all about what the climate is like where you live. And they have changed recently. So that's something to know. Is I know mine has changed. I think I was 9B before, and now I'm 10A. So it has changed since I've been here, only 6 years. So, you know, there is climate change and such. And so you want to think about really understanding like what your environment is like, and then how you're going to build for that. So if you're building for, you know, the current climate, that's great. But if you're building things long term, like trees and things like that, you definitely want to kind of consider like what's the climate moving towards for things that are going to be longer term, maybe more than just a season. Okay, so and then just thinking about the zones, like we see a lot of stuff like online that might be like what you want. You see all these Pinterest posts or things on Facebook and such, and it is really important to grow to your own climate. I know sometimes I see like all these beautiful like English countryside types of gardens and things, and that is not the climate that I live in. It's very Mediterranean where I live, and so if I want to get inspiration, I really need to find stuff that is going to work for where I live. So I really strongly suggest that. I've had a lot of fails that way by trying to plant things that you know, just really can't thrive in the environment that I'm in. Okay, so garden quiz. It's going to be really quick. This is out of the Garden Witchery book by Ellen Dugan. It's one of the Llewellyn books. And this is just about getting started in your own garden. Okay, so it's 8 questions, and you're definitely welcome to put these in the chat. I encourage that for participation, or if you're not sure, that's fine too. But this is really just about kind of getting started and getting what you would need for your home. So question number 1 is, what direction does your house or apartment face? So you want to think about the lighting. And the question again is, what direction does your house or apartment face? And if you don't know, these are great things to look up, later after the live. I know when I did this quiz years ago, I did not know some of these things, and I did have to look them up. So there's no shame if you don't know, nothing like that. Just things that are important as you start planning. Okay, so the second question is, where does the sun rise and where does it set at your home? Does it set and rise in the front, the side, or the back? And it kind of goes hand in hand with the other. All right, and then what phase is the moon in right now? And bonus if you know the sign that it's in. Now it's question 3. What phase is the moon in right now? And bonus if you know the sign. Okay, question number 4. Do you have trees in your yard? And if so, what kind? Seeing some answers in here. Great job for those adding them in. And yes, if you don't know, that's totally fine. Good to look up. Good things to think in consideration too. All right, and then what species of birds are in your yard? Do you know what your state bird is? That was the question in here. So if you live in the States, what is your state bird? Okay, question number 6. Do you have any perennials in your yard or flowers growing in pots or baskets? What are they? What variety of grass do you have? If you have grass. So that's kind of just thinking about, I don't really like how this question's worded, but just kind of thinking about like what already exists in your garden. What kind of plants are already there? What kind of grass, if you have grass, is there? And then what is the soil like? Do you have loam or clay? Is it sandy or rocky? And then this book has a bonus question, but it's kind of like my pre-question is what hardiness zone do you live in? That's the same as the USDA zone. What zone are you in? I'll call that question 8. Cool, so there's lots of really good answers in here. I'm still trying to identify some of the plants in my yard that were here when I moved in. Some of them, they're smaller shrubs. I don't particularly notice them. And I'm like, oh, what is that? And I'll go and how it goes. So those are the, just the questions on here. Hope that was helpful, and I hope that gives you like a good insight into your climate and what you can kind of start working with as you start planning your garden. Okay, so once you have kind of an idea of what you're working with, then you can start setting goals. So the first thing is, what do you want to grow? And it doesn't have to be outside. You can also grow in an herb box on a windowsill. You could grow under green lights inside of a home that maybe doesn't even have windows, like if you lived in a basement unit or something. I mean, you can still do some growing, but for today, kind of talking more about something outside or even a container garden like on a patio. But you want to grow something that you like. My first year gardening, I planted eggplants, and I don't even really like eggplants, and that plant for some reason decided to take off, and I had so many eggplants I did not know what to do with. And apparently a lot of my friends also don't really like eggplants. So yeah, I've never grown it again because I just ended up like composting most of it, and just felt very wasteful. So I definitely encourage you to grow what you like. It's fun to try new things sometimes, but use the majority of your garden for plants that you actually really like using. I know that sounds obvious, but people I know that are gardening and things, people end up picking things that they see at the store and they don't even like the way it tastes. So definitely get the stuff that you like. Should be fun anyway. And then it goes hand in hand, but grow what you're going to use. So if you like to cook with different items, I would really focus on planting those particular types of plants and herbs and things that you are reaching for the most often, so that you can use it when you have a large harvest. And then truly understanding your space. So not just the zone and the climate and the light, but really trying to understand how much space are you working with, how big are the plants that you have to work with, and what you're envisioning for your garden space. And it does change every year. Mine changes every year. I add on to it. I change things because it didn't work. It's not something that has to be set in stone. But as you can see, my space, I have a fairly large garden for my area, probably small compared to other people out in the country, but it is somewhat limited space, and so I've gone vertically. So I have my tomatoes all trellised right behind me, and that vertical, sorry, it's a large truck. That vertical space is really helpful for me to maximize the yield out of my garden. So things to note just in general is that my garden is going to look very different than yours. And in fact, my garden will look really different from somebody that's even on the other side of my neighborhood because the lighting is different. So if they live on a different street, their house is facing a different direction, they're gonna have to grow different things because all of our spaces are different. So one thing that's really popular with witches in the garden is working with the lunar phase. So that's something I'll go in a little bit. And the thought behind this way back in the day is that the water in the soil goes with the tides of the moon, just like the tides in the ocean, or the cycles of the moon, just like the tides in the ocean change with the moon cycle. And so kind of, there are things you'll find online that are really specific. I personally keep it pretty low key. I am busy. I have a hard time finding time as it is. And so I like to keep it simple and easy, but it's really up to you how much you want to add things like this into your gardening practice. But the most basic part with the moon cycles is as you're working with the moon that's growing, from the new moon to the full moon, is that you'll plant above ground crops. So the plants that grow upwards, those are gonna be, well, I guess they all grow upwards, but the ones that have they're fruiting plants, they put out either the leaves that you're eating or like a berry or a vegetable or a fruit that's above ground. Those ones you would plant between the new moon and the full moon. And then you'll plant the below ground crops like a carrot or a potato a beat, something like that, between the full moon to the new moon. So as it's getting, moving towards the dark moon. So there's also the moon signs, and it's really up to you how deep you want to go into this. I like to keep it easy. So I look at really the way of the signs in their element form, and then I slice and dice it into receiving and projecting. And part of this is because I like to work with the tarot. So if you think about the ace cut or the ace cards in the tarot, they have the hands and they're holding that that representation of the element. So if it's a wand or a sword, it's holding it like it's grasping it like this. It's holding it tightly and it's projecting that energy. So when I look at the different moon signs, I see it as it's a projecting energy, so a closed hand, and that's going to be with the fire and the air elements, those signs that correspond to that, and those are going to be good for me projecting my energy into the garden. So planting, pruning, weeding, things like that. So I am manipulating the space because I'm projecting it. And then as I work with the water and air elements, then that is receiving energy. And on the tarot, it has this as well, right? It's cupping something. So you'll see them like cupping the pentacle, right, in their hands. And you're receiving that from spirit or universe or whatever. And you're receiving that energy. So that's the time that I like to harvest, and water as well, because it does align to the water. But I think of the water more than me watering it through the hose. I think of it more as the water, like the plant is receiving the water from the hose or the universe, right? It's coming from nature. So that is how I slice and dice it. But I'm going to go through a list so that you can have that as well. And this again is going to be out of the Garden Witchery book, and this one is my go-to. I like it the best of a few different garden books that I have. Okay. And so in here it talks about the moon signs are for specializing. So they split it up into earth days. So these are for the dirty work of gardening, shoveling, hoeing, thinning, and transplanting. The air days are for communicating with the flower fairies and the tree spirits. So during these days, you would plant your flowers, sow your seeds, and secure your climbing vines or roses. The water days are for irrigation and watering of your garden. And, I skipped on the other page. The fire days are for planting, planning, designing the garden, and maintaining the garden. So that's how they do it in this book. And there's a lot of different methodologies. So it's something that you just want to pick what will work for you. And then it does go into each moon sign. So Aries would be the fire day, and that's when you harvest, weed, or cultivate. Taurus is an earth day, and that promotes robust growth. Gemini is an air day, a favorable sign for harvest and pulling weeds. Cancer is a water day. It's an opportunity for planting and transplanting. Leo is a fire day, and it's great for harvesting scented herbs. Virgo is an earth day, and that's for planting flower vines, as this encourages the bloom. Libra is an air day, and that is a flowering sign. Scorpio, a water day, and it's a good sign for planting shrubs and trees. Sagittarius is a fire day, cultivating and pulling weeds or planting a new flower bed. Capricorn is an earth day where you can plant and transplant, and they say that is the next best sign after Cancer. Aquarius is an air day, which is good for cultivation. And Pisces is a water day, which is good for planting and watering. So again, that is out of this book called Garden Witchery. I cannot keep up with those different signs. And so that's why I just and I don't even go by the 4 elements. I just kind of do every other day, right? Because the moon will move into one of those signs. So I can go from fire, air to water, earth every other day. And that, or every 2 days, I should say, with the moon cycle. So that helps me align where I can. I don't keep a hard, fast rule on it personally. But again, this is really your practice and your garden. And if you want it to be more rigid and more structured for your magic, then that's amazing and you should do that. And if you don't want to do it at all, that is also amazing and you should do that. So there's really no right or wrong way. Most of my plants are actually in container gardens. So they're in raised beds. I don't know if you can really see. They do go down into the dirt, but they're mostly raised beds. So in terms of the pull from the water cycles with the moon, I think it is probably a little bit more minimal because of that. If I was planting like in the actual ground, then maybe the moon cycle would affect my yield a little bit more. But again, it's just really up to how you want to practice on your own. Okay, let me find my notes and let me check the comments here. I love reading about all of your gardens. Yeah, we've definitely got the quail. There's no quail around me here in California, but they're cool birds. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for participating. And for those watching the replay, definitely drop your answers in on that quiz too. Okay. So that is the lunar phases. So some other things that you can add into your garden are crystals. I think a lot of us love to do that. And you can really add any crystal and look at the correspondence of that. I like to use jade a lot in my garden because it aligns to the love and abundance that I have for my overall garden. I use a lot of rose quartz as well, and just kind of quartz in general, so I can program them. And yeah, I just kind of will toss little crystals out and things too. Just some things you would want to make sure that they're able to get wet and able to get sun on them. The sun is probably not as critical unless you really want that crystal to be preserved. Like I know my jade fades in the sun, but I'm fine with that. So it just depends on what you're looking to do. So working with fairies and other nature spirits is amazing in your garden, and you can call on them specifically to help sing to your plants or send their energy to the plants. Working with the fae, I mean, you want to be very specific, and I know we have a lot of lives on fairy magic, so there's lots of great info in there. Specifically, I've set up spells and boundaries for the fairies. So I actually have like iron at my house because I don't want them in my house. And so they're kind of limited to certain spaces outside. That's part of the intention that I brought in when I invited them into the garden. And I put specific intentions that they could cultivate what they want. They can care for the plants as if they're their own and take what they need, and then that I will be doing the same. So it's like a cohabiting space. That is the instruction that I put in for my garden. It's worked very, very well for me. And then I did also build like a portal for the fairies to be able to transport from other realms and things as well. So those are some ideas that I have, but again, it's just kind of unique to your practice. If you don't like working with fairies, I mean, there's plenty of other nature spirits and gnomes and salamanders and even like, just really kind of any mythical creature. I mean, you could work with them within your garden space too. And then also deities. So I think Serenity mentioned she works with Gaia and Aphrodite in their garden. So I like working with Aphrodite and Venus as well. Actually planning on getting like a big statue. I'm hoping I can get one still to put out here and just kind of have like that whole dedicated space because that's who I really like to work with in my garden, and try to really build it up to look very Venusian. That's the vibe that I'm trying to go with. But again, really any deity, I think just about every deity connects to, you know, earth magic somehow, right? If they're working with us, we're here on earth. And however you want to slice and dice that and bring that together, I think is great. And you can honor your deity in this space as well. You can also build like an altar outside, and you can actually consecrate your gardening tools just like you would any tool that you use in your practice. So that's a pretty fun thing to do, is to you know, have your garden knife, you can have your garden shovel, you can actually like really work with even like just, you know, clippers and things like that. You can work with all of your tools and consecrate them within your practice as well. So some other ways that you can practice in your garden is just by really spending time. Your time and your focus are your magic. So if you're focusing on something that you're doing and you're spending that time there, you're automatically putting magic into that space. And the more that you're spending that time and putting that energy, and the more specific you create your focus and your intentions, the better. So yeah, just the more that you're out there is really the practice becomes part of your garden, and it's really cool to see it physically grow, whereas some different types of practices you can't really necessarily see it the same way that you can with garden magic. Meditating in the garden, I think, is a really beautiful way to connect with your garden. I like to bring my yoga mat out here. Sometimes we don't really get summer rains, but if it's a warmer day with rain, sometimes I'll lay out in the garden in my swimsuit and just enjoy being in the rain and soaking up the water with my garden. It's very cathartic. It's so wonderful just to like be out with your garden and just be with your plants. Like you're just connecting with them in that really special way. And then of course, you know, just creating a magical space in your garden so that your practice and your magic grow just by you being there, but making it feel as magical as possible for you, and putting things in there that represent you and your magic. It really ties everything in together in such a cool way. And then for me, I got chickens, so they are like my little, like, I don't know, plant warriors, I guess. They come in, they eat all the bugs for me. They weed out my plants, so they weed out little weeds. Sometimes they take out ones that I prefer that they wouldn't, but I have chicken fencing and cloches that I use all the time now to protect my seedlings. And also my new philosophy is if they cannot make it past my chickens, they just are not going to make it. So it makes it so that I only keep the hardiest plants, and it works out really well. I've also never had to buy fertilizer for 4 years because I run everything off chicken poop. So they really help me out. And composting for me is actually, I think, probably one of my favorite parts of gardening, and I tie this into my magical practice a ton. So I always strive, not always, but I try very hard. I definitely would say I'm over 90%, pretty close to 100 nowadays, to use only natural elements or natural things within my spells. So I try to work with like cotton or twine, things that are going to be biodegradable within workings that I do, different cloths and things, like even wool, stuff that I can actually stick into my garden beds and decompose myself. I do try to work with beeswax candles as much as possible too, so that I'm able to put all of those things directly into my garden bed. And so if I'm doing like a spell for abundance or love, those things automatically align into my garden. And even protection, really a lot of the work that I do, I almost always will compost it directly into my garden beds or into my composter, which then goes into my garden beds. So what I love about that is all of the energy that I'm putting into my different workings, I then put into my garden, and it just infinitely comes back in way more than like a threefold kind of way, right? I'm getting all of this energy, all of the workings. It's like self-feeding on itself. And to me, that is a very powerful thing. So I really love to do that. I get a little bit like, almost like obsessed of like, what can I get into my spell that I can compost and utilize? And through the years, I've definitely seen that work out very well for me. Anything that you're doing to like banish or a hex or anything that is going to be a darker type of thing, I would not put in my garden. I don't do a lot of workings like that, but the times that I do, I don't put it here. I take that to a crossroads far away or dispose of it another way. And obviously if you're trying to get something away from you, you don't want to like then put it into the dirt where it's kind of stuck with you at that point. So yeah, just something to think about. But that's actually one of my favorite parts, is the composting. Yeah, and then just kind of lastly on here is there's really something magical about creating the ecosystem. I really encourage bugs to come into my garden, and I definitely seen through, even within 1 year, like tons of bugs moving in. And yeah, I'm like I mentioned, I'm in an urban environment. It's so nice knowing that I'm being able to help the land and help nature and just create biodiversity, because the types of bugs have changed through the years. I see different varieties. I see all kinds of stuff changing every single year. And I do create a lot of habitats for different bugs. So like when I first started gardening, I would purchase ladybugs to bring them in, and they would just like all fly away. And so then I started researching like, okay, well, what can I do to bring them in? And I looked for native plants that they like. So one of them where I live is bronze fennel. And it's a fennel variety. It doesn't really bulb like the part you buy at the grocery store, but it does have some bulbing, so I can eat it like that. And then I can use the fronds in tea just like any other type of fennel frond. And it's native to my area. So I was able to get that, and within a few months, the ladybugs came and they lay their eggs on that thing like nothing I've ever seen before. Like I pick it off and I'm like, there's so many ladybugs now, I don't even know what to do with them all. And it is so beautiful being able to see that and knowing that I'm not only helping my own garden, but I'm helping my neighbors' gardens by having this plant here. And I'm very fortunate as well that I do have a couple of neighbors in my neighborhood that are beekeepers, so I don't have any type of issues with the bees pollinating anything. But that's something you could consider too, is if you are really struggling with pollinators, what kind of habitats can you create for pollinators, or maybe do you even want to do some beekeeping? So those are things that you can think about as well. Let's see, other types of habitats that I have. So one is with like spiders and things too. So I do have some of, they kind of look like little, the one I have looks kind of like a little birdhouse, and it has these little tubes inside. And so all different types of spiders and like creepy crawly type of things can go in there and create habitats. And so they're definitely in there, and I try to keep them out of my way. So I put them in kind of the corner I don't really go into, because there's a ton of spiders over there. But they do, help with the ecosystem as well. The chickens have also done a lot of ecosystem work for me, just on their own. So they keep the bugs down that I don't want, and they're very symbiotic with the garden. Yeah, I think just birds in general, give and take, because they want to eat some of the things and I don't want them to eat some of the things. But You know, there more birds for sure have started coming into my yard ever since I had my garden. So I think that's it. That's all I have on my list. So I'm gonna check the comments, and if there's any questions, let me know, and I'll just kind of start wrapping up. Yeah, Serenity, meditating in the rain is so nice. Yes, I'm definitely in a rain-free state myself, so yeah, don't get too much. But when I do, I like to take advantage. And Christy mentions that she has a rocking chair in the garden. That sounds so nice. I love that idea. Yeah, I've had to have like pretty good tree coverage on the side, and I'm in the shade right now because I have an umbrella like over me, so I kind of try to hide from my neighbors a little bit because they're probably like, what the heck is this crazy lady doing out here? But it is what it is. Yeah, it's Serenity. I also really want to do beekeeping. It's not in the forecast right now. I know it's a lot of work, and I have like one of my dogs is a puppy, and so she's coming up to age 2, but she is a terror. Like, she's really affected my garden this year. I do have a gate, you know, this fence to keep my dogs out, and then but I normally, you can't see, but on the other side I have all these potted plants, and they are all empty because she is a digger, and she is just digging out all of the dirt and plants. I normally keep flowers in those, and then my lawn just has holes everywhere, so she is just quite a terror. I love her, but I also hate her a lot right now. So I'm waiting for her to grow out of it, and I'm hopeful that she will. And I can't imagine what she would do with a beehive, is what I was trying to get at, because I could just see her getting in there and causing an issue. And Christy has some carnivorous pitcher plants. Wow. That is cool. Yeah, there's so many different types of gardens. Oh, and I was gonna do books. I brought all these books, so I'm glad I just remembered. But this one has some different types of gardens too. I can just read some of them off. But they have all these different garden themes. Like, I know I mentioned the tea garden, and there's just a lot of like cool ones. So in here they talk about doing like a moon garden with plants that bloom at night, so that's pretty cool. You can do ones that like are more specific to different deities. Fairy ones. I feel like there is a different area I'm looking for. Okay, here we go. So they have like friendship gardens, shade gardens. So yeah, if you have a lot of shade, you can need different plants. A gothic witch garden. That sounds super cool, like using a lot of like black plants and dark plants. A ghostbuster garden, an apothecary garden, so a lot of healing. 215, let me find this. They have little pictures too, which I think is cool. Maybe that's the other book. There's one on there. Okay, it must be in the other book that I was thinking of. But let me show you the different books. Yeah, Gothic Witch Garden. I feel like that would be so cool. Okay, so first book recommendation is The Garden Witchery by Ellen Dugan. So this is the one that I pulled the quiz out of, and the lunar magic info. And this is another great gardening book for like a witchy one. This author does some other really big books, like I think it's called like Green Witchcraft, and so these are one. Let me just find some info on this. Yeah, so this one has like Green Witchcraft, magical goals for your garden, types of witch gardens. This one has like a astrology and elemental garden too. It has different ways to like Bless Your Garden, Cleansing It. It has spells in here too, which I think is pretty cool. And it does kind of go through some of the different plants, so it's really like a nice visual book. But I feel like the other one has better kind of info overall. But this one is also really good. Okay, here's some examples. So here's like the moon. This is what I was looking for in the other book, but it's in this one. But it has like a moon garden. It has kind of pictures and ideas in there. So this is a nice book for sure. Okay, so other books that I recommend. So one is with the Old Farmer's Almanac, and I did not get one this year. I used to get them every year, and then I just stopped because I have a different astrology method that I'm using. But this is a home remedies from the same Old Farmer's Almanac. So that one, it is for farmers, but it's really witchy, and it's super fun. And it's so much fun. I love those books. They just have all these jokes and things in them as well. They go through like what's happening every day that year, and they bring in all the planets, astrology, like all that stuff. And this is remedies that they feature like in those, and it kind of has all of them. So here's an example of like dandelions. I think that's one that sort of grows everywhere. And they have like little, like all these different things you can do. Dandelion wine, the wonderful weed, like what you can do with it. Yeah, so that one's pretty cool. And kind of on the gardening aspect. So again, I really recommend trying to find things where you live. And if you move, like you have to kind of redo it all, right? If you move to a different part of the country or something. But this is not a witchy book, but this is one, I find these kind of things like at the thrift store all the time, or like at used bookstores, and especially in your area. So this one is on like California Gardens, and these are more like, you know, just finding, like this is, I think, oh yeah, this is the Huntington Botanical Garden. This is, like, anybody can go visit this place, like out here in LA, and it's got all the deities and stuff. But this is really helpful because when I first started gardening, I just would be like, oh, I want to do something like that, and that's just not realistic for where I live. And trying to find something that is like aligned to my geography is really helpful. So there's a lot of those like Mediterranean, like Greek and Roman style gardens out here because the climate is so similar to the Mediterranean. So, you know, work with what you've got. And then on that note as well, oops. So this is another book that I love this book. It's by a local gardener person, I guess you would say. Is kind of like somewhat of a celebrity, but they created Flamingo Estates. It's up in LA, and this book is really cool because it goes along with the seasons. It's a cookbook, but it's super witchy. And so this part is like midsummer. It gives like a little overview of all of the, you know, the things going on with that part of the season. And then they also do like all types of really good recipes. Let's see if I can find one. And they're oftentimes like stuff that's in bloom. So it has like a rose petal jam. That's the picture of it. And then the description. And these are like, all my roses are in full bloom right now. We're kind of at midsummer, and things that you can cook and work with. And because it's written by like a local cook, I guess, all of the things just really align to like the gardens that are here in Southern California. So again, this is a super great book. Highly recommend it if you're in SoCal. It's a good one. And because it's seasonal, I think that's super helpful too, because I can just go into that time of the season and know, okay, these are the things that are fresh right now. Okay, a couple more book recommendations. So again, on that line, this one is another one that I think I thrifted. It's called the California Heritage Cookbook. And these are going to be recipes that are you know, more aligned to the area. So this one I'm not as familiar with as the one I just showed, which I know they use like locally grown items specifically, just because I follow their brand online and stuff. I don't know what this person's is, but I know it's like it uses, like the times that I've pulled stuff out of here, it pulls in a lot of ingredients that I can easily find in my area. And it's just a, you know, just a cool vintage cookbook with everything I'm looking for. Just another one to show you. And then another really helpful book that I like is this one. It's Wicca in the Kitchen. It's one of Scott Cunningham's books. I don't actually practice Wicca, but I do really like this book because it's got like the magical properties of all of the different foods. So for instance, if I want to grow leeks, then I can look up what a leek is. It's aligned to the planet of Mars. Its element is fire. Its energy is protection, physical strength, etc. And it does talk about like different magical uses that you can have. And so this has been a really helpful tool for me for gardening and bringing the gardening magic into the kitchen. So I really like this book. And I know there's a million herbal books, so I didn't bring any of those out because there's so many. And this one is another little book that I love. It's The Language of Flowers. And so I didn't really go into it much on this live, but flowers are often a really big part of, you know, what people garden. Some people only do flower gardens. If you have a small space, like flowers are really easy and you can bring them inside, you can dry them, you can put them with your spells, you can work with them when they're fresh. You can, you know, place them in your home for those correspondences. So there's so much that you can do with flowers, and I feel they're often overlooked in magic. So this is a little book. It's actually a pretty like common book, and it's called The Language of Flowers. There's so many different editions of it because I think it was written in like the 1800s. Oh yeah, 1846. And it has two sections, so you can look up each of the plants and then what they mean, or each of the flowers and what they mean, or you can look up what it is and then what plants like or what flowers correspond. So that's pretty cool. So I'll just kind of randomly grab a page. So it's on the page D. So daffodil would be regard, dahlia, instability, daisy, innocence, dandelion, rustic, oracle. So there's like really all different types, and there's like a bunch of different daisy types underneath of like what they all mean. So it's kind of cool to have those meanings of the flowers. And then on the other side, if I'm looking for, let's see, something that aligns to like riches, it has corn. Rigor would be lantana, rivalry, a rocket, rudeness, xanthium, rural happiness, a yellow violet, rustic beauty, a French honeysuckle, a rustic oracle, a dandelion. So you can kind of look it up both ways. And I see this book around a lot. This one's like $7 on the back. I think I got it at like a garden shop. But yeah, The Language of Flowers by Kate Greenaway. So that's a good one just to have for the flower meanings, because I feel a lot of the witchy books like don't have that. All right, let me, oh, hi Ronette, glad you were able to join. Yes, this is my garden in the back. Thank you, I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Oh nice, you have leeks growing, I love that. I don't think leeks can grow where I live, but I love cooking with them. I actually just cooked with them the other night. Yeah, Cunningham is one of my favorite authors, and then my Scottish side is actually Cunningham, so I feel that connection to him, I guess, distantly related. All right, well, thank you so much for joining. I'm gonna go ahead and end it here, and I appreciate you all spending time with me. If there's areas that you want to focus on with garden magic, let us know, and I'll bring that to the group, because I know some of our other crones are wanting to do things on garden magic, so this is kind of high level. And yeah, we can maybe, especially if there are things we can show you how to do, I think that's helpful, because even as I was getting ready for this live, I mean, a lot of it is pretty simple with garden magic, but more on like how to do something more specifically, I think that would be cool to have for lives. All right, well, thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye.